The right to life is about the significance of every life, including yours. We'll explore that and more on today's edition of Life Matters with Brian Johnston. Brian Johnston is the Western Director of the National Right to Life Committee. He has served in many capacities while advocating for innocent lives, as California Commissioner on Aging, as Chairman of the California Pro-Life Council, on the board of the National Legal Center for the Medically Dependent and Disabled. He is an author and lecturer, a film producer, and commentator. And now, here's our host, Brian Johnston.
Well, hello and welcome. This is Life Matters, and I'm your host, Brian Johnston. As you've heard earlier, I've been very much involved in the Right to Life movement, but I've been involved in a lot of other things as well. Life Matters is about the issues of life. It's about life and culture. I guarantee you that you will learn new things about the nature of the right to life. My experience is that many people involved in this cause don't fully understand its depth and breadth and how they can be more effective. One of my purposes is to equip you with the tools and to plug you in with individuals and resources that will expand your ability to communicate what really matters in life. You know, one of the most common errors, I think, and it's a very, very common one, is to assume that the right to life is about your faith or about your feelings regarding human babies and the vulnerable nature of those sweet babies. And yes, they are sweet, but it's not about your emotions. It's not about their cuteness, and it's not about your religious predilections. Now, it is good to have faith. And to be honest, the right to life does not exist because of your personal theology. It's much bigger than that. The fact that your theology concurs with the right to life as a concept is a compliment to your faith. But the right to life isn't about your religion. It's not about your faith. The right to life, at its heart, is very simple and straightforward. We actually get this from our founding documents in the United States of America. We know that Jefferson wrote it out, but that all of the founders in the U.S., in creating, in essence, a new society, they concurred that there were certain principles to build on. Certain inalienable rights had to be affirmed, and the first among them is the right to life, the right to be alive. It's a declaration of the relationship between human beings and government. That's what the right to life is. It's a legal assertion about the role and nature of government when it comes to individual human lives. The role and purpose of government is to protect the lives of those that it governs. It does not give those lives that right. The government, in fact, doesn't give you anything. The government has a responsibility to protect your life. The government derives its authority, all of its authority, from the power and significance of your life, of each and every life. It derives its just power from the lives of the governed. The lives of human beings are infinitely more important and powerful in the big picture than is any government. And that's an essential element in what the United States is. It's actually reflected throughout the history of Western civilization. This attempt, and as has been said by many other philosophers, that the American experiment is the last great hope of mankind. What the founding of the United States of America did is it established a government that had at its very core what no other government had throughout history before that. The assertion that the government must be limited, that the government must, in fact, have limits on its own power, particularly on its power over human lives. And that was the first time in human history a government came into existence to proclaim that it must be limited, because all of our founders, as refined English gentlemen, as gentlemen of the Enlightenment, as gentlemen who had lived under a colonial power, saw what happened in Western civilization, as noble and as elevated as it was. The king still abused the power. The government, Parliament, and many others abused that power, and it needed to be limited. So that was an essential element, and it starts with the right to life. The right to life is what allows me to have any other rights. My right to be secure in my person, papers, and property. My right to keep and bear arms are so I can protect lives. That's the reason those other rights are there, is because the right to life is the preeminent and foundational principle. Now, this is so important because if you don't understand that, it is easy to be pulled into my theology about that, or my personal feelings about abortion or euthanasia or infanticide, where a human life is taken without due process of law. It's easy to be emotionally pulled into those issues and drawn down those many other issues. And by the way, in our program, Life Matters, we'll talk about all of those. Folks who are concerned about Catholic theology, there's many Catholic theologians that I'll introduce you to who agree with what I just said. Abortion is not wrong simply because your church teaches that it's wrong. It is wrong, and your church concurs that it's wrong. And we can talk about theology too. We'll have certain guests from various faiths, both evangelical, Catholic, Jewish, and non-sectarian folks, to explore what's at stake here and what can we do about it. How can we help others understand the nature of the right to life and see how it impacts our culture and community. And in saying that, really, this is a program about law and culture. It's about ideas. And if you're afraid of the law, don't be. All that laws are ideas that are enforced. That's what a law is. It's an idea that's enforced. So we're going to talk about ideas. You have to be able to think about these ideas. And then as ideas go out in a community, they impact the culture. And we'll talk about many aspects of how this right to life debate and how it was lost in 1973. What really happened in 1973 was not merely that abortion was legalized throughout the U.S., all of the laws of the 50 states struck down. Even more to the point, what was struck down was that premise that there is a right to life for a human who is vulnerable, that has not had due process of law. The Constitution says clearly in several places, no one shall be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of law. That baby in the womb that gets torn up into pieces and sometimes those organs sold for medical experimentation, that baby didn't get due process of law. That elderly woman who has Alzheimer's and is convinced by family members that this is the best way and we lovingly will help you take that poison, that woman did not get due process of law. And that has thrown wide open the dangerous invitation to abuse and the loss of the right to life in our culture. So we'll be talking about that. We'll be right back in a moment.
You're listening to Life Matters with Brian Johnston.
Well, hi. I just wanted to thank you for joining me. You know, I have good friends, children, young adults, and adults that have Down syndrome. And they are so loved. Their parents love them so much because they're the happiest people you'd ever want to know. I really love them. I'm going to tell you something, though, that's rather frightening. The government of France has now prohibited showing positive images of Down syndrome children and letting parents know how lovable they are. That's an actual law in France. Here in the U.S., 80-some-odd% of Down syndrome kids are killed by abortion before they're born. In France, it's 96%. So we're not a whole lot better. If you'd like to help out, you can go to the National Down Syndrome Society, ndss.org, to help out. That's ndss.org. We really are in a battle of ideas, and lives really are at stake.
And now back to more about life, culture, and the battle of ideas with Brian Johnston.
Hey, well, welcome back. This is Brian Johnston, your host for Life Matters. And this is a program that talks about the battle of ideas. We talk about how this right to life issue you've heard so much about impacts your life every day. We're going to be talking about, this is a good program for you to hear. It's a foundational program in this series. So I want to give you some background on what we'll be covering. It is not just about abortion, or it's not just about euthanasia. We're going to be talking about how this right to life debate has impacted everything. Obviously, ethics. It's impacted the law. It's impacted the nature of medicine, the nature of science, the nature of the arts. And perhaps most hauntingly, it's impacted individual relationships amongst individuals. I know several fathers that wanted to have a voice in the life of their child, and that was denied to them. It goes without saying that the implications of allowing the intentional killing of a vulnerable human being does impact others. It doesn't happen in a vacuum. And this is an issue that is not happening in a vacuum. It is sweeping through our society. And unless you understand it, unless you're equipped to fully grasp it in all of its depth and only handle that limited area that you personally want to handle, then you are not doing service to the community at large and to this greater battle in the battle of ideas. And ideas have consequences. And in this battle, lives, it's not just metaphor. Lives really are at stake. So it's important that we commit ourselves to understand the ideas and get ourselves involved. So we will be discussing over the course of these programs and with various individuals in the arts, in medicine and science, in the religious community, in the political world. We'll be talking about the implications of the right to life and what you can do about it. Because in all of these things, there's something that you can do. There's something that you can do to change and affect things. This is not about knowledge. It is about taking action and taking the right kinds of action. One of the things, I know it's a lot of fun, but I think people should realize that it's the arts that at this point are the most effective tools of communication. Communicating ideas, communicating values, emotions, and feeling. Film, television, yes, radio. That's the way a lot of our community gets its information. What they view on the web, on their iPhone, what their friends recommend as an entertainment program. Those programs actually have underscoring themes. They have messages. And we'll talk about how the arts themselves have been impacted and how they're being impacted for good. Many of you know me, that I, as an avocation, act and produce under a family name, Keenan Johnston. And I do that really in my spare time. I used to do summer stock Shakespeare, and I think it's important to realize that the literature of our culture is very important. It's what imbues us with values. We are no longer a literate culture. Let's put it this way. I think we're a post-literate culture. People can read, but don't. And that's very close to an old joke that Mark Twain used to tell. What's the definition of a classic? It's a book that everyone thinks should be read, but nobody does. Well, today, because of our electronic world, people don't tend to read books or anything of great length or depth, and that's a real shame. Instead, we have other people form those ideas for us and project them onto a screen and dramatically relay those to us, and they're very, very powerful, I have to admit. But it's a great loss to us. And yet I have to recognize that is where people are getting their values. It's one of the reasons that I dabble in film. We do have a film festival that happens in various parts of the country. It's based in Los Angeles, LifeFest Film Festival. And you can find out more about that at www.lifefilmfest.com. But it's dedicated to affirming those films that underscore the value and significance of an individual life, even the seemingly insignificant life. Because of that, our signature award is the Capra Award. If you recall, Frank Capra was known for not just The Wonderful Life, which is obvious, but many of his works underscored how someone who seemed really insignificant was in fact very, very extraordinary. And that person's life went on to impact everyone around them. Well, that's your life. That's my life. That's the life of someone that you think shouldn't be around, but you don't know the depth and breadth of what that life really means. And to say it's okay to throw that life out is a huge mistake for culture. And it's a huge mistake for individuals to feel that way about somebody else. So we're going to talk about all the aspects of what the right to life really is, about how to be more effective in communicating our care for one another, communicating our care for the right to life, about impacting culture, laws, and society, about bringing that message to ethics and science, about bringing that message to the arts and to our community. If you do believe in the right to life, you are on the right track. You are, as they say, on the side of the angels. And I don't care what your theology is, there is objective truth. And it's that objective truth that we want to be able to point to. It's not true because of my faith. It's not true because I believe it. It's not true because I have exactly the right theology or philosophy. It is objectively true. And we have been given a great gift in the American experiment. I am the child of immigrants, and I believe that this nation is unique. I've traveled the world, and people have told me in other countries that anywhere there's freedom in the world, It has been an emulation of the American form of government and the American principles. And at the very heart of that is the right to life. So Life Matters explores the right to life, what you can do about it, the various, and there is a whole cornucopia of related issues. Now, they may seem like tangents when we're dealing with them. As we deal with them, I'll explain, though, how it does get back to the value and significance of every life. Every single life is unique, and science proclaims that every baby that died by abortion today is genetically unique, and you can look at their signature in terms of the genome that they have. That person has never before existed in the history of humanity and will never again exist. The uniqueness of life is extraordinary, and we're here to celebrate that.
Very excited to let you know that I had a chance to meet with Carol Tobias a while ago, and I had my tape recorder with me, so I was able to pull her aside, and I got a great interview with her. You're going to hear from her in just a second.
Life Matters continues after this.
Well, hi. I just wanted to thank you for joining me. You know, I have good friends, children, young adults, and adults that have Down syndrome. And they are so loved. Their parents love them so much because they're the happiest people you'd ever want to know. I really love them. I'm going to tell you something, though, that's rather frightening. The government of France has now prohibited showing positive images of Down syndrome children and letting parents know how lovable they are. That's an actual law in France. Here in the U.S., 80-some-odd% of Down syndrome kids are killed by abortion before they're born. In France, it's 96%. So we're not a whole lot better. If you'd like to help out, you can go to the National Down Syndrome Society, ndss.org, to help out. That's ndss.org. We really are in a battle of ideas, and lives really are at stake.
And now, back to more Life Matters with Brian Johnston and a very special guest.
Well, hi, and welcome back. I told you we're going to have a great guest today, and we do. It's Carol Tobias, the president of National Right to Life, an old friend. I'm so glad that we have this opportunity to talk, Carol.
Thrilled to be here, Brian. Thank you for asking me.
Right. We're taking an opportunity. We're actually at a meeting. We've snuck away to a quieter room because there's a lot of important questions that people don't really understand fully in dealing with the right to life debate. And the import of the right to life is something that many people will remind me they feel it's important, but they don't fully understand some of the implications. So what we do in Life Matters as a radio program, we deal with the issues of life and the battle of ideas that really is happening all around us. It's swirling all around us. And unless we focus on what's really at stake, we're going to let these things continue to swirl, and they're going to get the better of us. So at Life Matters, we focus on issues that really matter and get down to brass tacks. And as president of National Right to Life, you have spent a good portion of your life doing exactly that and dealing with the life issue in a very practical and real way. I just heard you speak. I've heard portions of your speech before on that, and I think it's such a powerful premise because it's so much a part of the American psyche. And that's the idea of live and let live. An old comment. Could you comment on that for us, what that really means?
Well, when people use the phrase live and let live in today's culture, they're talking about you do your thing and I'll do my thing, and I'm not going to object to anything you do, and we'll just all get along and live happily ever after. But we need to change that a little bit and put the focus on those last two words, live and let live. We have more than 1 million babies, unborn babies, who are dying in this country every year because of abortion. We have the elderly or those with disabilities whose lives are being threatened because of assisted suicide, euthanasia. We need to reinforce, live and let live isn't just you do your thing and I'll do my thing. It has to be you are a human being and you have the right to live. Mm-hmm. So live and let live.
Yes. It's funny, we talked about that. There was the song that Paul McCartney did, And really, I think he did it, commissioned to do it for the James Bond film that turned that around, that inverted that, Live and Let Die. And so that was kind of a cute title. Sadly, though, that has been a cultural norm. People want to do their own thing, and they imply, as you suggested, and so I'm letting other people do their own thing. But they're not letting other people live if that means letting other people kill vulnerable people that are too helpless to defend themselves. They're not fulfilling that maxim of let live, which is the premise of society. I think it's such a powerful premise because that's the premise of civilization, what the philosophers referred to as the social contract, that we live at peace with one another because we have laws to protect one another and respect one another's lives. And if we abandon that premise of the social contract of live and let live, that my life, as valuable as it is of equal value to every other human life. If we don't extend that and care about that, we're going to lose the very premise of civilization.
We will. And what we are seeing, as I mentioned, more than 1 million unborn children being killed by abortion every year. 60 to 90% of unborn babies who are diagnosed with Down syndrome are aborted. We are seeing ethicists say that we should now start taking organs from people who are still alive to help someone else who is, going to live longer. We are seeing treatment being denied to babies who are born with some genetic disorder. We are seeing elderly people being encouraged to end their lives through assisted suicide. This country really is getting, more into the mode of live and let die, or live and, unfortunately, maybe we'll just kill you. But we need to turn that around to a culture of live and let live.
Oh, exactly. And again, that is, as you said so eloquently in your speech, it's the premise of this society, of the American experiment in society.
Well, the Declaration of Independence.
Exactly.
That we are all created equal with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. You can't enjoy liberty or pursue happiness if you're dead, which is why life was the first right mentioned in the Declaration. And this country was founded on that principle, a country with a government that had never been tried or seen before in the world. And for more than 200 years, we had the principle of human life being sacred. Human life should be protected. And unfortunately, we are kind of seeing our country turn around, fall on its head, trying to push the idea that if someone gets in your way, if you can find a way to get rid of them, it's better for our society.
That's right. And there's so many of our friends, we work with them regularly that are concerned about where our country is going. And I share those concerns, my right to be secure in my person, papers, and property, my right to keep and bear arms. That's all predicated on the idea that my life has rights, that my life has value. And the government isn't what gives us that value. In fact, the government derives its authority and its value from the value of the lives it is supposed to oversee.
And this country is a republic,
Yes.
which means one person with rights cannot be hurt, offended. You have those rights. It doesn't matter if everybody around you disagrees. In a democracy, you can, majority votes, but we are a republic.
Right.
And if you have those rights, they cannot be taken from you, even by a majority vote.
Yes, that's right. And when you use the word offended, and I'm going to qualify that, you don't mean emotionally offended.
No.
That's right. An offense against
Yes.
your person. And that's very important, this idea that you, as a human being, that is what is extraordinary. It isn't governments that are extraordinary. And this is what our founders said, no, human beings are extraordinary. Human beings are endowed. Yes, we talk about God in the founding documents, but in a way that's very clear, that is cannot be gainsaid, that somehow we got here, and whoever put us here understands that there's something extraordinary to who we are, and America is gifted. I'm the son of immigrants, and people from around the world come to this country because of that idea. This is the foundational idea that makes America what it is and gives America its freedoms. So there's so much at stake. I hope to get a little time. We're going to have to kind of wrap up this initial segment. But when you come back, I would like to talk about all of the issues now that are hitting every day in the news. You touched briefly on transplants, organ transplants. This is happening as we speak. The idea that, it's good to give your organs to donate. I donate blood, by the way, regularly. I think that's wonderful. But we now are seeing a qualitatively different aspect of that medical procedure of helping other people with parts of your body, which is what donating blood does. But there's some very deep ethical and legal issues now that are being implemented as we speak. And if you're not ready for this, you might make the wrong decisions that you haven't weighed out. There are forms that are going to be handed to you, and you need to understand what those are. So when we come back, again, I'm with Carol Tobias. She's the president of National Right to Life. And we're going to talk about the various issues that are on your plate. It's not on ours. We're two people that do this a lot, but on literally the plate of every American, issues that are coming your way. And if you're not prepared, you're going to be swamped and overwhelmed by them. Thanks so much, Carolyn, and I look forward to talking to you next time.
Learn more about everything in today's show online at lifematters.life, where you'll find all the resources you need to protect life. Listen to more Life Matters every Saturday at 1 p.m. right here on KCBC.